80% สอบไม่ติด MBA โคลัมเบีย MBA เป็นมหาลัยในเครือ M7 ที่เข้ายากมากๆอยู่ในเครือของ Ivy League ด้วยมีชื่อเสียงมากๆในประเทศไทยแล้วก็ระดับโลกแต่น้องเชื่อไหมมีแค่คนไม่เกิน 20% เนี่ยที่สอบเข้ามหาลัยนี้ได้นะฮะอีก 80% โดนรีเจ็คเนี่ยพี่เมฆไม่อยากให้น้องๆยอมแพ้ต่อโชคชะตาใดๆแล้วพี่เมฆอยากเป็นส่วนหนึ่งที่ทำให้น้องๆทุกคนที่มีความฝันเนี่ยสอบติดเนี่ยให้ติดวันนี้เราก็เชิญทางผู้รู้ตัวจริงก็คือคุณอแมนดาเนี่ยซึ่งเป็น Associate Director of Admissions เนี่ยฮะของ Columbia Business School เนี่ยมาแชร์เคล็ดลับให้ความรู้ให้ process แล้วก็อธิบายถึงวิธีการทำอย่างไรเพื่อให้ Columbia MBA รับเราก็อยากให้น้องๆตั้งใจฟังตรงนี้แล้วก็ใครที่มีคำถามเนี่ยสามารถพิมพ์มาได้ในคอมเมนต์นี้ได้เลยแล้วเดี๋ยวพี่เมฆกับทีมงานเนี่ยก็จะไปหาคำตอบให้น้องๆ
Hello everyone and welcome to this special exclusive event between Columbia Business School and Mission to Top You. We are delighted to be joined by Amanda, who is the Associate Director of Admissions at Columbia Business School. Amanda, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
So in this session, we will be doing our best to answer any question you might have about Columbia Business School, whether that's the admissions process, life in New York, scholarships, or what makes the school so unique. So without further ado, let's get started. Amanda, would you mind firstly just introducing yourself to our students and telling us how you came to be involved in Columbia Business School?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Amanda Nicholas. I am an Associate Director at Columbia Business School. I actually have my MBA myself, and in that MBA I studied operations and business analytics, and I decided that being in admissions would be an interesting place to be interested in data and reporting. So Columbia Business School had an opportunity. I was ready to move on from where I currently was and thought Columbia Business School was an exciting, interesting place to be and decided to join the team there in admissions.
Okay, and what would you say are the main strengths or selling points of Columbia Business School?
I would say one of our biggest selling points is the fact that teamwork and collaboration are so baked into the culture, not just within the classroom. So in the first semester in core classes, students are actually put into clusters, which are about 60 to 70 other people, and then within that learning teams, which is about 5 to 7 other people. And those are basically your study groups for all of your core classes. So you already have that teamwork baked into the curriculum. But then even outside of the curriculum, when I've talked to current students, there's definitely this sense at the business school that it's a rising tide lifting all ships. So we have a grade non-disclosure policy that was implemented by students. So essentially what that means is students don't disclose their grades to potential employers via internships or whether it's their postgraduate jobs. So that way employers aren't comparing grades for candidates. I've even heard wonderful stories of collaboration from current students. One of my favorite ones is a student who decided she really wanted to get into consulting a little bit late in the game, and with consulting there's a very specific interview process, there's a lot of prep you have to do for that process, and one of her classmates said, hey, I'd be happy to help you study for that. And every day over the winter break, for almost the entire day, hours, they would sit on a Zoom call prepping for the consulting interview for their entire winter break, which is about a month. So that's a long time and a lot of dedication. But because of that, that student was able to make the pivot into consulting that she really wanted to make. So I think that collaboration is such a strong part of our community. It's not competitive. People aren't trying to get one up on over each other. It's really about making sure that everyone succeeds, and I think that's really special.
Mm-hmm. So, some universities have certain reputations. Kellogg, very famous for marketing. Stanford, very famous for tech and entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. Is there a particular area that you think Columbia excels in?
Yeah, historically, Columbia has been very famous for finance. It is where value investing was born. It's where a lot of people who are big in the value investing space are still involved. That being said, if you are not someone who is in finance, we have many areas that are growing at Columbia Business School. So you'll find on our website, one thing that our current dean, Kostis Maglaris, recently implemented are the 5 pillars, and they're related to the future of business. So yes, one of the 5 pillars is finance, but then it also includes things like sustainability, tech, AI. So those are all areas in which we've grown strengths. Sustainability is a particular strength of Columbia Business School. We see a lot of students coming to us who are interested in energy and sustainability. Tech is something that is growing strongly at Columbia Business School as well. And one of the benefits of being in New York City is that we're able to have those different strengths in different areas because we have access to so many different industries.
Yeah. Okay, something that a lot of our students are interested in is GMAT, of course. Maybe interested isn't the right word, worried, concerned.
Of course, yes.
Right, so for Columbia, the middle 80% is between 700 and 760, I believe.
Yes.
What are the realistic chances of someone being accepted with a score lower than 700?
Yeah, I'd say it is realistic. We have admitted people with GMATs lower than 700. We've even admitted people with GMATs lower than 600. We've also not admitted people with perfect 800 GMATs. So really what I would say to anyone who's worried about your GMAT score is we're not just looking at your score and saying, oh, this person can't do this program and putting the application aside. We are looking at your entire application. We are looking at everything beyond just your test score. Of course, we want to make sure that you can handle the curriculum because it is challenging. That's really the main thing we're checking with the test score. But at the end of the day, we also want to make sure that your career goals seem feasible, that you're going to be involved and active in the community, and those things are just as important as your test score.
And for those that maybe can't get the GMAT score, you accept EA as well?
Yes, we also accept executive assessment. We accept the GRE as well. For anyone who hasn't seen this yet, we actually will be accepting the GMAT Focus Edition this year once it becomes available. I will say in addition to anyone who is worried about their GMAT score, I know quant tends to be the main area that people worry about and struggle with. One way to show that you are dedicated to getting your MBA and dedicated to making sure your skills are up to par with the MBA education is doing an MBA math course, which a lot of schools offer online.
Okay. And for GRE and EA, what is a competitive score to give you a chance for Columbia?
Yeah, so for the executive assessment, you'll find online that a lot of people will say the average is around 155. I'd say that's a good baseline to go off of for the EA. For the GRE, I believe we do actually have those statistics posted on our website for anyone who wants to reference those scores to make sure that they're within those ranges, or around those averages rather.
So let's talk a little bit about the admissions process. So obviously universities tend to group applicants into regional areas, right? So maybe an African pool, an Asian pool, European pool, etc. Who exactly are Thai students competing against when applying for Columbia?
Yeah, I'd say Columbia doesn't really group the students in pools like that. We actually don't have any quotas when it comes to admitting a certain number of people from certain regions or countries. Really what we're looking at is making sure that we're building out a diverse class in multiple facets. So you can't really always bucket that in terms of region or where people are coming from. So we don't really bucket that. What I will say for anyone from Thailand is that we've actually noticed a growing number of Thai students from the region. Last year we admitted the largest number of Thai students, about 25 in our incoming class, which compared to 10 years ago, I think it was 1 Thai student. So it's been a huge growth from the region in general.
So it seems like you have a very holistic approach
Yes.
to the admissions process. What kind of qualities are you looking for successful applicants?
Absolutely. So in terms of success, as I mentioned before, we do look at academics mostly to make sure that students are going to be successful in the classroom. We don't want to admit anyone who's going to start off in their classes and be stressed out because they're worried about their grades, because there's so much more to the MBA experience beyond that. We'll also be looking at professional promise, is how we refer to it. So what have you done in your career so far? How have you grown? If you're worried about work experience, our average work experience is about 5 years, but we often see people applying and being admitted who have 2 years of experience. We recommend having at least 6 months of experience. What I would say is the more experience that you're able to bring into the classroom, the more you're able to get out of it. So just keep that in mind for anyone who is worried about how many years of work experience they have. We'll also look at what your goals are. So, where you've been so far in your career and then where do you want to be. So what we're trying to get out of that is, are your goals feasible? Have you thought about your goals and made sure that you are taking the appropriate steps and have thought through the steps to make sure that you can achieve those goals? Because again, we want to make sure that students are, of course, we have many wonderful career sources, but we do want to make sure that students are successful and able to make those changes in their career and upskill in the ways they want to upskill and not feel that they're not getting the ROI that they wanted out of their education. On the first essay in the application, you'll talk about your career goals. So it's short-term goals, that is, what you want to do immediately after business school, and then your long-term goals or your dream goals, really. The way I tend to refer to this is, if nothing is stopping you, what is the thing that you would absolutely love to do in your career? In the interview, if applicants are invited to interview with an alumni ambassador, they'll also get to expand on their goals. And then also we want to know your personal characteristics. Who are you outside of the classroom? So we'll ask about extracurricular activities, and that can be things that you did in your undergraduate education. It can be things that you're doing within work now. So if you're within your company, if you're part of an affinity group, if you're part of any clubs at your company, that counts towards extracurriculars. Some people discount that. And then anything you're doing outside of work as well. We want to get a good idea of how you're going to be involved in the community, because it's a very bright and vibrant community, and we want to see people who are going to get involved with it.
So a lot of prospective students, obviously they have several alternative schools that they are considering. What would you say to those students to convince them that Columbia really is the best place for them?
I would say that first and foremost, you should definitely pick the school that is the best fit for you and what you want out of your education. It's not up to me to tell someone what the best fit for them is. In terms of Columbia itself, though, I think one of the things that is unmatched about Columbia Business School is our access. Being in New York City, we have not only access to so many different industries that you could get involved with if you're still trying to figure out your career goals. It's actually a great place to be, because it will allow you to explore different industries or different functions. Additionally, we have about 50% of our faculty are adjunct. So that means these are people who are still working in their respective industries, or maybe they're recently retired. And because they live in New York City, they go to work in the morning and they take a train up and teach at Columbia Business School at night. And that's not always an experience you're going to have outside of New York City. Also, just being in New York City is a wonderful experience if you like the big city life, if you like to explore arts and culture, fashion, technology. There are so many different things to explore in New York City, even food. We have a lot of great clubs around that as well. So if that's something that you're interested in, that cultural experience and exploration, it's hard to beat. And of course, our tenured faculty as well are experts in their fields and able to talk on so many different subjects. And you're going to find people who are passionate and excited about all these different areas in multiple ways at Columbia Business School.
Okay, and a program that we found to be popular among our students is the J term.
Yes.
Now, there is a rumor around the J term that is perhaps slightly easier to get accepted, and due to there being fewer candidates that want the one-year option with no internship. Is there any truth to that?
So I'd say we see around 200 students start in the J term. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's less competitive because we're seeing less students. But I will say the J term is a bit more specific and a bit more niche. So not everyone is going to want the J term experience, because if someone is looking to pivot their career, which a lot of MBAs are looking to pivot their career or maybe make a major change in their career, then the J term wouldn't necessarily fit with their goals, because that summer internship experience can be very important for that, making that big pivot, that big change. So for the J term, we're seeing some more niche areas where we'll see people from family business, we see entrepreneurs who want to focus on building out their startups or growing their startups and don't really want to focus on any internship opportunities. And then also people who are sponsored by their companies and are going back to the current industry, going back to their current company, and again, don't necessarily need that internship experience to make that change. So it's not 100% less competitive, it's just a little bit more niche in terms of what people want out of their MBA experience.
I see. Yeah, so I understand Columbia has several scholarship opportunities. Would you mind detailing some of the opportunities available to international students and specifically Thai students?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have multiple types of institutional funding. We have merit-based fellowships and need-based scholarships. So merit-based fellowships are based on your academic performance, GPA, test scores, so that's one thing to keep in mind. Need-based scholarships are based on financial need, and there's a separate application for those after people are admitted. I will say, just because the J term seems to be very popular for Thai students, in the J term there actually is not any merit funding, it's only need-based scholarships. That's one thing to keep in mind. However, there are outside scholarships, there are external scholarships that students can certainly apply for, and there's more information about that on our financial aid website for anyone who's interested in delving into that. And of course, there are loan options as well. There are some international loan options that don't require co-signers for international students, which I know can be very challenging. For anyone who is interested in the August and in merit fellowships, the fellowships that we have typically aren't based on region, but are more based on areas of interest. So there might be fellowships based around sustainability, fellowships based around finance. There's actually the whole list of fellowships on our website for anyone who wants to maybe figure out what kind of fellowship like they could qualify for. There's no separate application for those fellowships though. That's determined by, we have a fellowship committee who awards those based on what people put in their application. And then there's also general fellowships as well outside of those specific niche categories.
Okay, I see. There's a perception that it can be quite difficult for international students to find employment in the US after they graduate. How does the CBS Career Management Center help international students find employment after they finish?
Yeah, absolutely. So our Career Management Center, or we shorten it to CMC often, when students start at Columbia Business School, they are paired with a career advisor. And that career advisor has specific knowledge on the industry that they're interested in. So, and they also are, for international students, are paired with a career advisor who's specific for international students as well. So that way you are getting specific advice to your situation and what you want to do in your career. While all of our career advisors are generalists, I think that's a great benefit of the Career Management Center, because you're going to have that more niche advice because, for example, finance and tech are very different industries when you're recruiting for them or trying to find jobs in them, and how you network with those industries can be a little bit different. So having that more specific advice, I think, is helpful to all of our students, but again, with international students navigating kind of the new waters of being in the US, that can be very helpful as well. We also have many different kinds of career resources. So we also have career fellows, which are second-year students who help advise first-year students on the recruiting process and kind of give them guidance based on their own recent experience. We also have the Executives in Residence program. These are people who are executives who are well along in their careers. Maybe they've already retired in their careers, who actually come on campus and have offices on campus, and students can sign up to speak with them. So any student can sign up for this. It's actually very underutilized, and I'd encourage more people to sign up for the Executives in Residence program, because you're not going to get that kind of helicopter view guidance from anywhere else when you're at the business school. In addition, the Columbia Business School MBA is STEM designated. That means for international students that you have 3 years of OPT after finishing the degree instead of just 2. and that's typically very attractive to US companies. And we found that many of our students who are international who've graduated recently stay in the US. I don't actually have those statistics offhand, but what I can say is that about 85% of all of our students have received job offers within 3 months of graduating from Columbia Business School, and then by 6 months of graduating, it's 95%. So there's great career outcomes for people graduating from Columbia Business School, both domestically and internationally. And I think especially for the international community, that 3 years of OPT is really helpful for anyone who does want to continue with work experience in the US.
Yeah. Well, it's clearly a very supportive environment at Columbia Business School. Does that extend to helping students find accommodation, or does Columbia provide accommodation for international students?
Yes, so for housing accommodations, I will say it is pretty competitive. However, the Columbia Resident Services takes distance into account, which means that for international students, it's actually much easier. So while housing is competitive at Columbia Business School, there is on-campus housing, and they take distance into account when it comes to on-campus housing, which means that international students qualify for housing, and it is typically easier for international students to qualify for on-campus housing accommodations and get that accommodation. However, a lot of our students do still choose to live off campus, even internationally. So all admitted students are put into a Slack group once they're first admitted, and through that, a lot of people will find roommates. We'll find people to share apartments with, so that way they can stay closer to campus and share those housing costs. Within New York City, Columbia sits, if you are looking at like a subway map, Columbia is on the 1 line, so most students might even live pretty far out from Columbia Business School, but as long as you're on the 1 line or can easily transfer to the 1 line, it's still not going to take you too long to get to campus. And again, a lot of students are going to support each other in finding housing together, helping with those costs, especially with the international community, definitely coming together to help share those costs and help each other find apartments. So while on-campus housing is certainly available, especially for international students, you do still have that support network if you want to find something outside of on-campus housing.
And what do most international students choose? Do they choose on campus or further afield?
I'd say most international students will want to live on campus in their first year, but in the second year, most students actually will try to live farther afield and like live in a different area of New York City to kind of explore a little bit more.
Yeah, of course, right. Okay, I think last thing I want to touch on is the Alumni Network, which I understand is very strong in Thailand and in Bangkok. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a very strong alumni community here in Thailand and Bangkok. We actually ran an event last night that a lot of our alumni attended. It was for prospective students with an alumni panel to speak about their experience as students. And even though we only really had 3 or 4 people on the panel, so many people from the alumni community decided to still come out and support the event and speak to their own experiences and network with the prospective students, which the prospective students definitely appreciated because everyone has different goals, and with so many people from the alumni community, I think everyone was able to connect with someone who was in the industry that they were hoping to get into. And they were using it as another opportunity to meet up. Our alumni meet up at least once a month and get together for dinners and birthday celebrations. They go to each other's weddings, they celebrate each other's achievements in life. So it's definitely a strong community, and it's only getting stronger. Last year we admitted the most amount of Thai students. I might have already touched on this. And so it's only gonna keep getting bigger and keep getting stronger.
Okay, well, I think we can wrap up the session there. Amanda, thank you so much for all the information.
My pleasure.
Really interesting and informative, and really appreciate you coming to see us today. Do you have any contact details for if students have any more questions for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can always contact our office at apply@gsb.columbia.edu, and someone from our office will certainly make sure to get back to you. My email is an3139 at gsb.columbia.edu as well.
Okay, thank you so much.
It was my pleasure.
จบกันไปแล้วนะฮะสำหรับอินเทอร์วิวแบบ Exclusive สุดๆเลยนะครับในวันนี้นะน้องๆคนไหนที่มีคำถามเพิ่มเติมนะฮะสามารถทักมาถามกันได้ที่ Line Official Account นะฮะ @missionuw นะครับแล้วก็ใครที่ไม่สะดวกเนี่ยพิมพ์คำถามทิ้งไว้ในคอมเมนต์นี้ข้างล่าง YouTube นี้เลยก็ได้นะฮะใครที่ยังไม่ได้กด Subscribe นะครับกดได้แล้วพี่เมฆกับทีมงานพี่ทุกคนนะครับเป็นกำลังใจให้น้องๆทุกคนฝ่าฟันเส้นทางเข้าสู่ท็อปยูให้ได้ก็วันนี้พวกเราทุกคนลาน้องกันไปตรงนี้ก่อนนะฮะติดตามคอนเทนต์ดีๆได้ในอนาคตเพิ่มเติมนะครับอย่าลืม Subscribe นะครับโอเคบ๊ายบายครับ